last thing, brothers and sisters, if you're not on our email list, we're going to be passing this around. Please sign up on our email list. God bless you.
Okay, good afternoon. Happy to be back with you again. Those of you who survived this morning's workout, I see David here and a few of you here. So welcome. This is a really important topic. The effects of caffeine, alcohol, and tobacco on the body and mind. So let's see what we can get in the time allotted. I know we started a little bit late, but there's a couple of key points I want to make. But let's invite the Holy Spirit to be with us before we get started. Gracious Father, we praise you, we glorify your name. We thank you so much for all of your blessings. We thank you for bringing us all here safely. And as I begin this presentation, I pray that you work through me to speak to someone out there, either individually or corporately. You know the presentation I plan to talk about. You know what I put together. But I ask you to overrule those things that are not consistent with your purpose, and those things that are, I ask you to help me to emphasize. Because I know that these are your children, not mine. And we want the time that we spend together to be a blessing and not a curse. That your will be done and not mine. And if anything at all comes out of this of good, that all of the honor and glory go to you and no one else. And this is my prayer in the very precious name of Jesus Christ, our Lord, our Savior, and our very best friend. Amen. Okay, so let's get started. Now, this is part of alcohol, tobacco, caffeine. There are 8 laws of health. What we're going to be focusing on, what this is a part of which law? Temperance. Always temperate. Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about. And we're going to focus on the effects of the caffeine, alcohol, and tobacco on the frontal lobe of the brain. Now, there are 5 things that actually affect the brain and can affect the brain in a very negative way. As you can see, it's the dietary factors, there's dangerous drugs, hypnotism, music, and other factors. We're going to focus on the dangerous drugs part. Now, let's get some context around this. Okay? What kinds of drugs are there? There's really 3 types of drugs, aren't there? There's the illicit drugs. Anybody know what illicit drugs are? Cocaine, heroin, LSD, right? And then there are the legal drugs. And then there are the prescription drugs. It's very interesting the way this works out. So what we have is alcohol, nicotine, and caffeine. These are all legal drugs. Does the body make distinctions between legal, illegal, and prescription drugs? Does it make economic and political decisions? I don't think so. So as I talk about this, you should have an appreciation for how all drugs affect the brain. But we're going to talk about the legal ones. And as we get started, let's look at Corinthians, 1 Corinthians. And our good friend Paul says, all things are lawful for me, so they may be legal. All things are lawful, but all things are not expedient. All things are lawful for me, but all things that do not edify. So there are a lot of things that are lawful, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's good for you. And that's one of the things that we can keep in mind. We're going to start off with caffeine. Now, I'm going to talk about a principle, something that happens when you take caffeine in. It happens for all drugs. Caffeine happens to be one of the mildest drugs out there. And we will see that even though this is problematic, you can just multiply so many fold the more dangerous drugs in the legal area, in the illegal area, and in the prescription area. When you take in caffeine, there's a chemical called acetylcholine. It stimulates the production of acetylcholine. That's that feel-good, that's that stimulant, that's that positive energy, that uplifting characteristic that you feel. But at the same time, see, the body is always working to correct itself. It always has to balance. You know, the pH always has to be about 7.1 to 7.3. It's a very narrow margin. And if it's too acid, the body tries to correct. If it's too alkaline, it tries to correct. So the body is always going through thousands of transactions to keep you in homeostasis. When this acetylcholine is going up so that you don't fly through the roof, there's another chemical that's also affected called adenosine. Now, acetylcholine, if you were to put this in context, is if you had a very fast, powerful car, like a Ferrari. Now, when you hit that accelerator, you want to go really fast. But you really want to have some really good brakes, don't you? And so that's what the adenosine is for, is to kind of balance it. And when you continue to drink coffee, or any drug for this matter, there's something called the adaptation reflex. You need more or different kinds to get the same effect. And so and you might start off with half a cup. When I was at IBM, I was up to 7 cups of coffee a day. You go into all these staff meetings, all these committee meetings, it's all over the place, it's free. And you know, we say, oh yeah, we know it's a problem, we can handle it. Next thing you know, you get to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 to get the same effect at a half a cup, a teaspoon. Now, a lot of things in moderation works. Now, what is the law of temperance? The law of temperance is you avoid all things that are bad, harmful, and do those things that are good in moderation. Is coffee good for you? Well, actually, it's on the bad side, but a teaspoon of coffee is actually good. It's that it gives you that nice little stimulant, and it's medicinal. How many can stop at just 1 teaspoon? Okay, most people can't. Somebody was asking me, what about green tea? Now, it's not as much, and you might not get the same kind of, but strong coffee, 1 teaspoon can have a medicinal effect, because it does do some things. It does stimulate the system to do something. But what we do is you get to a tablespoon and a half a cup, and then it goes up and up. And so that's why you get the withdrawal symptoms when you stop. Because when you stop, you're not putting any more of the caffeine in that's stimulating the acetylcholine to go up, but that adenosine is still there. You're not doing anything about that. The body has adapted to say, I need this high level of adenosine in there. And so that's why you get the headaches and the fatigue and all of that. And the good news for caffeine, that takes 2 to 3 days, usually. Maybe a week or 2, if you're particularly addicted. And so I started with this, and I'm going to spend the most time on this because I want you to, in your mind, start using a multiplication factor for these other, way more dangerous, lawful drugs. We haven't talked about the illicit drugs. We're not going to talk about that, and we're not going to talk about the prescription drugs. But the point is to understand all drugs have this kind of effect. And with caffeine, there's a whole host of issues involved. It can cause high blood pressure, nervousness, anxiety, tremors, irritability. You can have problems with the gastrointestinal system when you take caffeine in. Not only, a lot of people take it because it helps me to go to the bathroom. And it does. It causes violent peristaltic action. It's a poison. So the whole gastrointestinal system it just shakes up, and that's why you have a bowel movement. But it's like a storm going on there. So you're introducing this, and after a while, you can't go to the bathroom unless you have the caffeine because it adapts to functioning only when you have this violent reaction happening. So it creates all kinds of gastrointestinal issues, and you see people with Crohn's who are particularly sensitive, or irritable bowel syndrome, or a whole host of gastrointestinal issues. It also, that acetylcholine is way up there. So your eyes are like silver dollars at night if you keep drinking it throughout the day. So those are the problems, those are some of the key problems, and that's what I want to focus on for caffeine. And I started with the simplest one just to kind of set a baseline. Now, nicotine is a lot more dangerous. Okay, as a matter of fact, if you took pure nicotine, less than a teaspoon, and you took it straight, you would die. That's how poisonous it is. Now, you're taking just a little bit at a time, but it's a lethal poison. And, you know, it covers the full spectrum. Women, men, even kids, and it's real cool. Young kids are getting into this really terrible habit. And the annual mortality from tobacco is very high. I don't know if you can see this, but the point here that I wanted to emphasize is that cigarette smoke contains more than 4,000 chemical substances. We know about carbon monoxide, nicotine, formaldehyde, formalin. Now, there's a few hundred, maybe 1,000 or so chemicals, but when you light up, you're making even more chemicals, and your body has to negotiate all of this. It's lethal what it does to the system. This drug addiction also causes artery damage, impotence, loss of bone density, skin damage. The body has to go into emergency action. Remember how we talked about the caffeine? The body has to give up calcium, have to do all kinds of things to balance the overacidity and all of the issues caused by cigarette smoking. Secondhand smoke itself kills 5,000 non-smokers a year from lung cancer, and 30 to 40 million suffer from allergies. Tobacco is said to be the deadliest drug in the world. So, it might be legal, but is it expedient? Is it good for you? I think we know the answer. We don't have to spend a whole lot. A lot of us know by now the dangers of alcohol, and the dangers of tobacco. Interestingly enough, back in the late 1800s, my favorite author outside of the Bible said that tobacco is a scourge. Do you know what the cure for emphysema was back in there? Smoking. You can see it's horrendous. It paralyzes the cilia on the lungs, those little hairs that pushes out the poisons and the mucus. It closes up the areoles, all of the sacs in there, and it's just horrendous what it does. But see, we don't see it. Now, I got up to 1 to 2 packs a day back in the old days. Tobacco goes real good with coffee. So I was smoking 20 to 40 cigarettes for 22 years. The good news is, again, if you looked at my lungs, you would think I never smoked. After 7 years, your lungs are as pink as when you ever started. We are fearfully and wonderfully made. And the body does heal itself when you put it in the right environment. The right environment in this case is what? Just abstinence. You don't have to take any medicine, any drugs, just stop. I would contend that if you saw the devastating and disgusting, this devastating and disgusting habit was doing on the outside, like what it does in the inside, a lot of people would stop smoking. You look in the mirror after a few months of this, you say, this is a problem, but you don't see it. So we just continue, and you saw what happens. 1/3 of cancer deaths come from tobacco, from cigarette smoking. But not only cancer, and not only lung cancer, but look at all these other cancers that result. There's a whole host of all the cancers, lip cancer, liver cancer, kidney cancer. Every single organ of the body is impacted. See, let me just stop for a second. Let me make my cancer commercial. If you were to put on weight, do you get one fat arm and the rest of the body skinny? Do you get one big foot and the rest of the body skinny? Or does the whole body get fat at the same time? And if the whole body is fat at the same time and you go to lose weight, do you lose it all to one arm? Just one skinny arm and the rest? No. Another important message. I'd rather talk about key points. The principle is cancer is a systemic issue with a local manifestation. When you have cancer, it's in your whole body. You have this process going on. It's not an event, and it manifests itself in the weakest organ of the body. Now, what is the most assaulted organ of the body when you smoke? The lungs. That's why most people that smoke, they have a higher predisposition towards lung cancer. But if your predisposition is a weak kidney, liver, etc., bladder, you can see this same cancer that would come about from lung cancer would come up in this particular organ. So don't be surprised that you see it, that it has this devastating effect in all of the organs. It affects the heart disease. When you smoke, it causes what is called vasoconstriction. It narrows the blood vessels. So it also, you can see the predisposition towards other vascular disease like diabetes. It narrows. So if you're not getting blood to the pancreas, all of those important organs you need, you can see how you can get into a disease process very easily. It also has a spiritual impact. It affects the frontal lobe of the brain, which is the seat of your will and ethical behavior. And it has a stewardship impact. When we were created, we were to have stewardship over the whole planet, over the animals, and over our body temple. First Corinthians 3:17. See, God is serious about this temple that he made. He made us in his image and likeness, and we're supposed to take care of this body. We're supposed to take care of this temple. And he tells us, if anyone defiles the temple of God, God will destroy him. For the temple of God is holy, which temple you are. So we have a very important responsibility. Now, is this just for tobacco smoking? Or is it for all drugs? Is it just for drugs? Or is it for all things that are bad for you? So you can see how we're making the application here. So we're going to talk about 10 ways to kick the habit. It's disgusting, isn't it? You can choose not to smoke, no hitting cigarettes, deep breathing, daily exercise, walking, get more sleep, water inside and outside. Avoid, our friends, caffeine and alcohol. See, drugs, one drug is a gateway for others, legal and otherwise. So, you have a nice greasy meal, and then you have alcohol with the meal, then you have a nice cigarette after it, and you're so sloshed and wiped out that you need caffeine to go home, to drive home. So you can see, and there was a time when I lived like that. I was blessed with poor health, so I had serious health issues in my 20s and 30s. So that if I didn't make changes, I'd be in a lot of trouble right now. But that's what happens. Now, I want to focus our attentions, though, on the last two. Lots of vitamin B, lots of vitamin O. Anybody know what vitamin B is? What's vitamin B? Well, we know that the B1, B6, B2, B3. The B vitamins affect the central nervous system. All drugs compromise the functional integrity of the central nervous system. That's why it affects the brain. It also leads to Parkinson's and Alzheimer's, just a whole host of issues. It impacts the functional integrity of the brain. It also affects the joints. The heavy metals in there affects the joints, the thyroid. It's devastating. What's vitamin B? Anybody know what vitamin B and vitamin O are? The two most important vitamins. What's that? Niacin. That's a good guess. Okay. First one is vitamin Bible. That B. If you know what God is telling us about these drugs, what he's telling us about our body temple, what he's telling us about stewardship, if we're really paying attention to this very important Bible, this vitamin B, you'll be in very good shape. And then the other one is as important as the first. Vitamin O. Obedience. That's a tough one. When I do my cancer presentation, I talk about God's chemotherapy, God's radiation, and God's surgery. His chemotherapy is all the chemicals that you get out of juicing. All those good chemicals, all those vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, phytonutrients, all of those. And then God's radiation is sunlight. And you know what his surgery is, right? His surgery is to cut out all the dietary and lifestyle factors that contributed to the cancer in the first place. It cuts. It hurts. Some people would rather be shot or cut than obey God's laws. And I'm talking about both his moral laws and his natural laws. He's the author of both. He's not just the author of just the natural laws or just the moral laws. We have to obey all of those. And the obedience, if you had these 2 vitamins alone, you would add 15 to 30 productive years to your life. We'll be the most powerful group on this planet, which is what God had intended, incidentally. Let's talk about alcohol. The most dangerous drug on earth. It's interesting. Now don't go running around saying this, that I say this, but people are all worried about marijuana, and they're doing this, that, and the other thing. Did you know? Well, let me say it this way. What was the drug in Coca-Cola before caffeine? Anybody know? Who? Cocaine. People are just so happy, and they were marching and they were taking their coke. They were high energy. Interestingly enough, in 1968, when Nixon put together the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Agency, they had a list of drugs. Heroin was off the list, and caffeine was on. And you're saying, wait a minute, why was caffeine? Now, I got off real quick because of all the economic and political considerations. People are making a lot of, I don't see half the issues with marijuana. Now, don't go around saying, Dr. Sharp said we should be smoking marijuana. But let's look at the devastating effects of alcohol. This is legal. You can go to jail for 5, 10, 15 years for marijuana, and you don't see 0.1% of the issues. Now, don't go around saying that Dr. Sharp said we should be smoking pot. Okay? I'm just trying to give you context. A lot of things out there, including prescription drugs, have more to do with political and economic considerations than it has to do with science. Okay? It's the #1 public enemy. This beloved enemy claims at least 100,000 American lives a day. 5 times as many as all illegal drugs combined, including marijuana. That's marijuana and all of those. 5 times. If it was marijuana, it's probably 500 or 5,000 times more. Again, don't go around saying we should be smoking pot. And alcohol, just a little context. Alcohol is glamorized. Everybody's happy. It's part of weddings and funerals, entertainment, card games, all over the place. Alcohol is all over the place. Conventions, when I was in IBM, it's flowing. You can get more alcohol than you can get water at these events. What does the Bible say, though? What does vitamin B tell us? Well, Proverbs 23:31. Do not look on the wine when it is red, when it sparkles in the cup, when it swirls around smoothly. Did anybody ever drink here? Don't start. If I never drank. I never had a drink until I joined IBM. And then an after-office party. I remember the first time I had, a little bit, a vodka gimlet. But after a while, 2, 3, 4 drinks, and I was able to make it to my car and get home. It's amazing what it can do for you. And some of these wines, I remember all these Saint Raphael, French wine, this wine, German wine. And as I look at this, it does sparkle in the cup, doesn't it? It feels good. You get real mellow after hard, you just kick back. Sante Filion was it? All these different wines. What else does it tell us? At the last, it bites like a serpent and stings like a viper. Your eyes will see strange things, and your heart shall utter perverse things. Not only your heart, your mind too. Everything starts to look good. You can be a person of the opposite sex. You can be the ugliest thing on this planet. After three drinks, you start looking good. It really has a major impact on what it does to your decision making, to your powers of observation, etc. The effects of alcohol. Let's look at some of that real quick. Kills 5 times more people every day than any other drug. Car accidents. Half of all fatal automobile accidents are due to alcohol. Now, again, don't say Dr. Sharp said we should have marijuana. I don't know anybody who's had a car accident because of marijuana. And yet you can go to jail. You can run somebody over and kill them in a car. And you might have your license suspended, may pay a fine. Sometimes you might get off altogether. But don't get caught with 3 sticks of marijuana in your pocket. You go to jail for 5 years. Again, I'm not promoting it. That's why I started with caffeine. I'm trying to make a point. All drugs are problematic. There are too many economic and political decisions being made. And what we need to do is we need to make our decisions based on the Bible and the pen of inspiration. Home and work-related accidents, higher crime rates, alcohol and pregnancy causes fetal syndrome, mental retardation, just a whole host of it affects. Now, you don't have to be a scientist to know that alcohol affects the brain. It affects more than the frontal lobe, which is the seat of our spirituality and our decision-making, analytical ability. It affects every part of the brain. The parietal, the temporal, the coordination. It's very observational. You don't need an FDA-approved, double-blind, placebo-based study to know that alcohol really affects the brain. It affects, you have an increased risk of strokes. It affects the heart. It affects the liver. It has the most, this is what's most well known, the impact on the liver. Alcohol damages the cells. The liver becomes more. Now, why is the liver so important? The liver is responsible for negotiating all of the poisons that we put in our body. It's a very important organ. There's 4 lobes to it. And some believe that once you destroy it, it can never be put together. Humpty Dumpty can't be put together again. But it actually can. There are actually some herbs like milk thistles that help you to rebuild it. But don't go and tear it down and break it down so that you can say, let me show you how I can rebuild my liver. It's very, very difficult. And it's devastating what it does. Cirrhosis of the liver, hepatitis, all of these major issues. So that's the classic piece that a lot of people know about with alcohol. Now, let me ask you a question since we got on this far. Does tobacco affect the liver? Does caffeine affect the liver? Right. It's a matter, you got it. It's a matter of degree. But this has the most devastating effect because it's such a terrible poison. The way the body works is it sacrifices itself to save you. The body is designed to be a perfect elimination system. When you put something in your body, if you don't assimilate it or eliminate it, it's a poison. It will kill you. Alcohol is such a poison that the body goes, it says, hey, look, I don't need to do this. I don't need to start growing hair. I don't need to grow lips. I need to do whatever I need to do to get this poison out of the system. And interestingly enough, alcohol affects women more than it does men. What a terrible, discriminating drug. Why is that? Because the enzyme that's required to break down the alcohol is more deficient in women than men, generally speaking. Not all the time. You know, I know some women are sumo wrestlers. They'll pick me up and throw me across. But most women are delicate. They're angels. And they have this angelic inside that doesn't like poison. doesn't like poisonous alcohols, tobacco, doesn't like poisonous men either, but they have to deal with us, okay? Peptic ulcers, it destroys the whole gastrointestinal system. And you see it all the time, people with a whole host of Crohn's, irritable bowel, colitis, all of these diseases. Itis means inflammation. It causes all kinds of inflammation. It causes inflammation of the blood vessels. That's how you get atherosclerotic problems with it, with the tobacco, the alcohol, etc. Because it's not necessarily the clogging of the food is terrible enough. The fat clogs the blood vessel. But what's worse is when you get this inflammation from these poisons that, remember I said the body has to heal itself. You get these little tears. You get what is called venal or arterial fragility. They're very fragile, and they break, and they bleed. And the body says, oh, I have to put scar tissue there so I don't bleed to death. And that's what a lot of the plaque is a lot of time. It's all that scar tissue, and that's what's blocking up. So when you stop the abuse, the scar tissue goes away. And all the prescription drugs in the world will not get rid of that scar tissue. You can roto-rooter it out, you can hack things out, you can replace all, but actually when you do that, the blood vessels that replace the original equipment that God gave you get clogged up faster than the old ones. That's why bypasses don't work, generally speaking. The immune system is compromised. It causes all kinds of vitamins and mineral deficiencies. I remember when I first started, one of the first presentations I gave was called Vitamins for Sinners. And basically my philosophy is teach people, health is like a target. You have a bullseye and then you have the concentric circles. I like to teach the bullseye. But then there's other places on the target that's okay, on the concentric circles, but there are some things that aren't even on the wall that the target was pinned on. And then some things, so they're way out there. And so when I did this vitamin for sinners, I would say every time you smoked a cigarette, you gave up 25 milligrams of vitamin C. So if you're going to smoke 10 cigarettes, you should take an extra 250 milligrams of vitamin C. All these things for how you put a vest on, a bulletproof vest, to mitigate the damage. So if you're going to have somebody coming at you with a knife or 22 or 357, you're much better off with the vest than without it. But you're still going to wind up with damage sooner or later. So there are all these vitamins and minerals. That's why the B vitamins are being exhausted from alcohol, the C from tobacco, and they're all to a certain extent because the body is using all of its organ reserve capacity. See, so when you get on this, when we're born, we all have congenital predispositions. We're all given a bank account. So if you've given enough resources the last 110, 120 years, the body has to use those resources for all of this emergency trauma treatment. That's why most people, like the Bible says, it's interesting, the Bible was written 3,500 years ago. It says, man will have 70, and if you're fortunate, you'll have 10 more. 70 to 80 years. It's been like that for the last 3,500 years. Now, I'm not talking about people who are dragging along at the age of 90, 100. I'm talking about being full functional integrity. Most people only last, the average age is about 76, 77. Because of the cumulative stress on the body and all that organ reserve. Whereas if you took care of yourself, and you can reclaim a lot of that, you can go to what your original longevity was designed to be. It puts on weight. It's empty calories. It affects others. Violence. Cancer. Now this is interesting. And there is a lot of information going around the European study on alcohol. What it says is that a glass of alcohol or a glass of wine a day for women and 2 glasses for men would extend your life. I remember years ago I was arguing with doctors, etc. They're showing now how bogus the studies are. And the big one was resveratrol in red wine. Now, is there resveratrol in red wine? Absolutely. But why you have to take in all this baggage to get this little bit of resveratrol, but you can get 100% pure, unmitigated resveratrol from grapes, red grapes? So, this is interesting. I didn't have this information back then. This was about 15, 20 years ago. But now we know that as little as 3 drinks a week, not 1 a day for women and 2 for men, 3 a week. And you know what's sad about this? We all, unfortunately, have family or friends that are plagued with this. My youngest brother died. He was from being an alcoholic. And not directly from the alcohol, but, he went out, party, drink, and then he had a serious, fatal car accident. So we all know, and it's sad. We love them so much. And it's painful to see them go through this process. And the reason I put this up, there's a phrase in the medical profession, not my profession. In our profession, we said, we use Proverbs 26:2. The curse causeless does not occur. We look for the causes and contributing factors to things. But in the medical area, there's something called idiopathic. It almost sounds like a pathological idiot to have to accept that as an explanation. But idiopathic means, I don't know, unknown cause. So you go in there, it's amazing. They use these long Latin terms. And I challenge people, I say, go to the doctor, let them take all their blood tests and everything, and let them tell you what the problem is. You go in there, you say, well, I got, and you say, but liver, oh, you got hepatitis. You tell them. If you didn't tell them you had a headache, chronic headaches or whatever, and they look at all that, they wouldn't have a clue. The few minutes they spend, you tell them something, and they give it back to you in Latin or Greek, and then they fill out a pad. Thank you, doctor. You run out there with the information. And that's why I put, there's a whole host of issues involved. And so you want to look at the cause contributing factors. And when I work with my clients, I tell them, quite frankly, what I do is I say, let's get rid of, I have a very easy practice. Because I say, tell me your diet and lifestyle. I say, just give me 6 weeks, and you'll see significant improvement. And they go through. I mean, it's not rocket science. I'm going to tell you my secret. Don't tell anybody. I say, well, stop drinking for the 6 weeks. Don't do any coffee. Do green tea or something milder. Better yet, do ginger tea. Do dandelion root tea. Cigarettes is obvious. So don't do that. And then they come, Doc, this is the best I've felt in my entire life. I'm a genius. Now, I don't say, well, I don't know. I don't have a clue. Now, of course, there's dietary things. There's a lot of people that really think they have really good diet and lifestyles. But that's the subject of another presentation. But that's what you want to do. You basically want to stop these things. So, you cannot drink the cup of the Lord and the cup of devils. You cannot be partakers of the Lord's table and the table of devils. Let's get back to vitamin B. This is simple stuff. I'm a real smart, powerful doctor. You know why? Because I don't know anything except my Bible and the spirit of prophecy. Now, I have 3 doctors and a PhD. I'm glad I became a Seventh-day Adventist. I'll probably try to get another 3 or 4 or 5 doctors or PhD that would have been used. Most of what you learn in school is useless. I'm telling you. Now, I did real good in these useless topics. But it's all there. And so, what does Paul ask us to do? You can see the anguish. It's like me trying to talk to my brother before it happened. I beseech you, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you present your bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. reasonable service. No longer be conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you can know what I'm trying to tell you. Then you'll be able to read the rest of what I have to say to you. The way he says it, that ye may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. And let me tell you, there are a lot of Christians who think, well, a little bit of alcohol, a little tobacco. Well, not tobacco so much, but caffeine, a lot of caffeine. And it's in soda. And what's the first cousin to caffeine? How about chocolate? That also affects the functional integrity of the frontal lobe. Here's what my favorite author, outside the Bible, said: to keep the body in as healthy condition in order that all parts of the living machinery may act harmoniously should be the study of our lives. You know, we are blessed with this health message. And we're given this, we're supposed to be stewards of it. It's like the Israelites. They were given that message so they could be an example to the world. We are given this also. We should be running to the promised land. We shouldn't be being carried over the finish line. We should be joyfully. And we shouldn't be having these diseases of the Egyptians. Since the laws of nature are the laws of God, it is plainly our duty to give these laws careful study. Anybody? I did a presentation a few weeks ago, and somebody said there was a medical doctor in the back. He said he didn't agree with anything you said, except for one thing. When I said integrated medicine is important. There's some very good things. When it comes to trauma, there's no better technology. He said that's the only thing he agreed with. I said, all of these things that he disagreed with, did he give you one biblical or one spirit of prophecy support for what he had to say? I said, all of those that he gave support for from the Bible, the spirit of prophecy, I want to take notes on. Otherwise, I'm not interested in what he had to say. And it was a medical doctor, but I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's Dawkins or some genius. I don't care what they have to say. The last time I checked, when God went through Genesis, and he looked at this, he said it was good. And at the very end of Genesis 1:3, he looked at all of it, he said it was very good. I'm asking people to help me to find. And I looked, I can't find it. Maybe I have too much ADD, etc., from all those years of abuse. I can't find anywhere where he called the committee of Moses or Abraham or Noah, anybody in the Bible or any place, or a task force and said, help me to make it better. So I don't care what they have. Now, he did inspire the prophet through inspiration, and there's a lot of things. As a matter of fact, when I first read it, I didn't want to believe it. But if it's inspired, and you say you're going to follow God, he's a theocracy. He's not a democracy. It's not a fill in the blanks or multiple choice. In the old vernacular for where I grew up, it's my way or the highway. This is it. So I'm not interested in anybody's opinion unless they can back it up with the most important medical manual known to man, the most powerful system known to man, the book of salvation, the salve of not only our souls, but of our bodies as well. It's all there. The purpose of health reform is what? To secure the highest development of body, mind, and soul. So these are those laws of health. Now, we focused on temperance, but the point I want to make here is to solve the problem of these addictions, caffeine, alcohol, tobacco, whatever they are. We want to follow all of God's instructions, his moral law and his natural law. Now, what does James tell us if you break one of the 10 commandments? You broke them all. What happens if you break one of the natural laws? You break one, you break them all. So we talked about temperance. The point I'm making here is to recover, you need to get back to vitamin B and vitamin O. We have it. This is the easy part. I can tell you from my personal, you notice I kept saying we. I don't say you. I say we. I have the same issues you guys are dealing with. They might be different or a different degree, but we all have it. This is the easiest part, to read, quote eloquently, different versions, but the tough part is the vitamin O. So, those of us who are claiming to be followers of Christ, this is some advice that we should heed. The children of God cannot glorify him with sickly bodies and dwarf minds. It's a great God we serve. Here we are, giving our coughing on people, hacking and wheezing, falling apart. Let me tell you about, how are we going to glorify? I mean, can't talk, can't speak, can't remember it, can't even remember the person in front of you, don't know where you are. You say, I'm a Christian. Let me get away from this clown as quickly as I can. You cannot glorify God with sickly bodies and dwarf minds. We have a responsibility. We have a higher responsibility. We're called. You know, he didn't give the health message to Episcopalians or Catholics or Ayurvedists, to Hindus. He gave it to us. We have a very important responsibility. Notice I said we. I wish I could say you. We have a very important responsibility. We are to reflect the highest attributes of the character of God. He cannot make us in his image when we are in violation of his moral or natural law. His law is a reflection of his character. He wants to rewrite his law on our hearts, on every sinew, on every bone, on every corpuscle, on every telomere. All that stuff that you've been hearing about, we should be walking epistles, walking Bibles. Say, wow, that's what the Bible is saying. We, I'm not saying you. But he's there for us. And he tells us, he that overcometh shall inherit all things, and I will be his God, and he shall be my son. So we can really be brothers of Jesus Christ. This is God. This is the first person of God said, look, if you overcome. So we have a good reason to do this. You know, 1 Corinthians 9:24-27. You know the one about the athlete? That's one of my favorites. That's the ones that this is mine. Everybody has theirs. Let me tell you what, I like this. Well, a lot of you know I do the Senior Olympics, etc., so it has some significance for me. Let me tell you what it says. Know ye not that they which run a race run all, but one receiveth the prize. So run that ye may obtain. And every man that striveth for the mastery is temperate in all things. These guys are motivated. I'm motivated. Now, I can't be doing a whole lot of things and not getting my sleep and all that and expecting to perform. Now, they do it to obtain a corruptible crown, but we an incorruptible. I therefore so run, not as uncertainly, so fight I, not as one that beateth the air, but I keep under my body and bring it under subjection, so that when I have preached to others, I myself will not become an outcast. That's what I said. I'm not talking about you. This presentation is for me. I'm glad you guys came here for me to remind myself. I'm in a whole heap of trouble. Okay? And then, isn't this nice? Everybody knows this, 1 Corinthians 10:13. I'll translate it for it. Basically, it says, yeah, we'll be tempted, but he's always there for us. And he'll never allow us. You know, Satan can do everything but read our thoughts. And I'm going to tell you how we get the real key to getting rid of all addictions. But what it says here is, there hath no temptation. See, he was tempted in all things, right? That you but such as is common to man, but God is faithful, who will not suffer you to be tempted above that which ye are able, but will with the temptation also make a way of escape, that ye may be able to bear it. He's there for us all the time. Isn't that powerful? Aren't we blessed? So this is the key. It's God's plan versus Satan's plan. So where God gives us godly trust, we get satanic trust. Open air, air pollution, daily exercise, television, anaerobics, sunshine, absence of light, proper rest versus no rest for the weary, lots of water, swimming in sin. Okay, we're almost to the end. Always temperate, plenty of temptations, nutrition, lots of denatured foods, what I like to call the weapons of mass destruction. I mean, we just throw them in our bodies. The improvised explosive devices, boom. I mean, we're just causing all kinds of peristalsis, organs, and we're just flying all over the place. And then he finished off with his plan, all kinds of weapons of mass destruction, and never in harmony with the master healer. So which plan do you want? This is the way you solve it. So what's the divine prescription for health and healing? Divine prescription for all addictions. I mean, I meet so many people all the time. They say, you know, let me tell you, Mom, I quit smoking 100 times before I quit. And you know, anybody ever smoke? You know how that works. You stop. Well, boy, I'm the only sinner around. Let me get out of here. I'm the only one who sinned? Oh, please. Give me some company. Thank you. Oh, so tell me if I'm wrong. You quit and then you smoke OPBs, other people's brands. Hey, can I bum a cigarette? You're laughing. You might have been there, John. And I quit until finally, when it's right, and when God hits you, I quit. And you know, you try. You can do the patch. You can do this. You can do all. You know, you can take a sip of water and you're healed once you get in harmony with the master healer. So the divine prescription for health and healing is getting back to the moral law. Interestingly enough, the moral law is Exodus 20, 1 to 17. The natural law, his natural law, is Genesis 1:1 to 2:17. And you saw it on the previous chart. That's the subject of another presentation. But that's the healing. And then you become addicted to the word. See, you can't stop an addiction and do nothing else. If you clean out, the law of inertia says something else will fill it in. So you have to fill it with something else. I know this one guy, he was an alcoholic. You'd appreciate this one, John. He's an alcoholic up until the age of about 53. He quit alcohol, he quit smoking, and he became an obsessive physical performer. And then he was a world-class performer in track and field. He became obsessive doing track and field. So the point is, you need to get addicted to something else. I have a recommendation. Okay? And my recommendation is to become addicted to the Word. Addict. Acronym. ADDICT. You see it on the left. Okay? Become an addict. Always praying. Luke 21:36. Don't get started in the first place. Follow the moral law. So go to the Bible. Don't get started in the first place. The other D. Do God's prescription. You don't need patches and this. Do the 8 laws of health. You don't need any of that. You don't need any kind of pharmaceuticals. You don't. You know, I defy you to eat fruits and vegetables and juicing and then want a cigarette. It doesn't even make sense. I wasn't doing that when I was smoking. I was hamburgers, French fries, greasy bacon, eggs, grits with a lot of butter. Now, yeah, why are you smiling? Were you doing that too? And you do that, and of course, coffee and it feels good. Cigarettes don't feel good after a smoothie. See, you guys know. Try it. Do a wheatgrass juice and say, I want to be like the Marlboro. No, it doesn't. So you get back on those laws. So do God's prescription. That's the second D. I like I. The Bible tells us I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Philippians 4. So these are mine. You find your own. But get it out of the Word. Don't get it out of a doctor's office. Don't get it out of the American Medical Association or the Tobacco Guild. Get it from, become addicted on this as your guide. Then C. I like C. Come to me, all of you who are weary and heavy laden. I'll take care of you. Matthew 11:20. So there's so much in the Bible to lift us up. And then, back to vitamin O. Do it and trust in divine power, which is the God's plan that Genesis 2:17. Right? So, as I'm ending, some of you are saying not a minute too soon, but we have a loving God that we serve. The most powerful man, the powerful force in the universe, created the stars, the sun, the moon, created us. With all that love, he doesn't force anything on any of us. There's a mystery of iniquity to me is, why are you paying attention to me? I've been so bad, so wicked all these years, and yet, he's not forcing me to do anything. He's not communist. He gives us decision. That's the first question I want to ask him. I say, why did you let all this happen? I have a lot of questions, but that's one of them. The adversary will kick the door down, knock it over, he bang it over, he hit you upside the door. He just knock on the door, ever so gently. And tell us he wants to come and sup with us. And yet, with all of this, with all of my learning, and I want you guys to help me out because I found out there's 4 things God does not know. As I read from cover to cover, there's 4 things God does not know. As I read the Pen of Inspiration, there's 4 things that God does not know. All of this power, all of this majesty. Anybody know what they are? The first one, God does not know a sin he doesn't hate. The second one, this is the one I like the best. God does not know a sinner he doesn't love. Third, God does not know a sin he won't forgive. Now, we talked about caffeine, tobacco, alcohol, but there's other issues out there. Don't go, I'm cool. I don't smoke. There's all kinds of issues out there that we're addicted to. It could be porn. It could be shopping. It could be self-righteousness. It could be judgmentalism. It could be sadventism versus gladventism. There's all kinds of things that we could be addicted to. And the 4th thing that God does not know is God does not know a better time than right now to come to him, all of us who are burdened and heavy laden, and he give us rest. He tell us his yoke is not heavy, and he will take care of us. Anybody disagree with me? Those are the 4 things that I found out he doesn't know. And aren't we fortunate? So let me just end up with one of my favorite verses that I like to end up all of my presentations. I have a series called The Prescription, the Divine Prescription for Health and Healing. And my message to you is, again, let's get it from vitamin B. Whether you eat or drink, or whatever you do, let's make sure we're doing it for the glory of God. Thank you for your time and kind attention.